What's going on, everybody? Happy Friday. It's stablecoin summer. I'm coining it here, Kyle. That's what's going on. It's time for the Security Token Show, everybody. We've got the latest and greatest real-world asset tokenization news. And if you've been following along, it's been going gangbusters. It's no slow summer, RWA summer, stablecoin summer, whatever you want to call it. It's good times over here in RWA land, isn't it, Kyle? How are you doing this week, my friend?
I am great, Herwig. August, we are in the throes of summer, which typically was always historically a slow time of the year, but there's no stop in the RWA chain, my brother. Let's get right into the show.
No, there isn't. We've got quite the show lined up, so I agree. Let's get into the market movements and cover the biggest headlines. Kyle, this first one that we're going to launch off with this week is a bit of a doozy. I know even just bringing it up slightly in our briefing before starting the show, we were already going off on the rails. It's a hot topic. It's the title of this show. Should states, we're talking, of course, about United States, American states here, should they be issuing their own stable coins? Because guess what? Wyoming is the first to officially say, this is history here, that they are the first to issue a stable coin. This is the state. They actually had put together in 2023 a stable coin commission to explore this. And now the Frontier, FRNT, US dollar backed stable coin, of course, I believe 2% over collateralized, is now available or being rolled out. And again, marking the first ever stable coin to be issued by a state. So if you thought it was crazy that we are going to have a stable coin from Amazon, Walmart, from MetaMask, and everyone else that's announcing one in the current foray, now it looks like states are getting into the game. Wow, Kyle, what's your initial reaction?
Well, Herwig, we spent a long time talking about this behind the scenes. I feel pretty strongly in my gut, at least. And again, I like to have strong opinions loosely held. So theoretically, I could change. And I love the adoption point, right? I think that this is an exciting technological endeavor, and it's cool to see that the government is embracing these things. And I am generally kind of a states' rights kind of guy. But one of the things that I think that the federal government really should preside over is currency of transaction within the country. And so I don't totally love the idea, to put it in a politically correct way, of a state launching their own currency. I just feel like as a private issuer or a private company, having transactional systems within your platform or whatever makes sense. And X, Y, and Z is wonderful. PayPal or Visa or MasterCard or a bank or whoever. When you start to have states doing it, I just feel like it starts to kind of break apart some of the cohesion of interstate commerce. And I think that's one of the biggest strengths of the U.S. economy, is that each one of these states kind of all operates almost like the European Union, right? In terms of everybody's on the same currency, we have the same rules. We don't necessarily mess with that too much. And in a world where everything is getting extremely politicized, I don't think it's good for the country's cohesion to have individual states having separate currencies, which then opens the door to one day having, additional taxes or conversion costs between different currencies for different citizens of the United States, all that kind of stuff. Not saying that we're going that direction or that this is happening today. But again, what happens if you have a Democratic state like California and a heavily Republican state like wherever, Florida, and they say, well, look, we're not accepting, California dollars in Florida, or we're not accepting, New York dollars in Texas, or whatever it is, right? Like that just feels really odd to me. And so on the gut, I don't love this. But I think that the technological development of it in and of itself, I think is a really cool thing.
I got a similar reaction. It's awesome to see. This is, again, who would have had it on their bingo card that, a state would successfully issue a stable coin in 2025? I don't think there are too many people that were really bullish on that officially happening. And they've done it in great execution, it even looks like, right, Kyle? They got a great sort of name for it. They've deployed it not with just one chain or built their own chain or doing a private network. They're on Arbitrum, Avalanche, Base, Ethereum, Optimism, Polygon, and Solana. Like, talk about just saying, okay, we're going to work with all the best and big chains to roll out here. And it's now state backed. So I completely agree with all your opinions. I mean, it's kind of confusing to me to have 50 different stable coins issued by, states to have to play with or use in certain situations. That's certainly interesting, and also does create some interesting market mechanics. And that's where I want to lean into, which is like the sort of state versus private component, right? Historically in the United States, we don't see too much action with the government competing in sort of financial technology or even other sectors, right? So the idea that now there is a stable coin that's issued by a state that may have a leg up against, private stable coins is interesting. How that might end up playing out and how that's competitive to the market. Again, this is just, I think, sort of unprecedented, and I want to see how this all plays out. Is it going to lead to more states? Is this going to lead to other corporations that are issuing stable coins to be upset? Are they going to somehow try to work with it? A lot of questions that are coming out, more so than I have answers of, yay, great, this is a state issued stable coin that's going to do X, Y, and Z, right? So as much as I agree with you, I kind of applaud the effort. I'm left scratching my head, wondering if this is actually a good thing. And I'll end it on this, Kyle. I thought everybody was pretty anti-CBDC. I could see, I tend to play devil's advocate. I see a lot of different ways that this can be done potentially correctly, but it seems like this would be one of those very first steps, right? You got now you've got a stable coin issued from a state. This is like a light version of that. And I feel like nobody's crying foul here about this.
Yeah. Well, and didn't Trump
was very
about anti-CBDCs? Again, what happens if a state has a currency, the federal government doesn't like it? There's a lot of weird potential clashing points here that I just just feel like we're heading down that direction.
Yeah, well, it's the genie's out of the bottle now, it looks like, Kyle. So we're going to follow along for sure. And if you have questions, of course, in the audience, make sure you leave a comment. We want to keep this discourse going, but we are going to move on because I think we could spend a whole hour going down that rabbit hole of what this truly means. And, maybe we should do that if people want to hear that. But for now, I want to talk about the mooch, Anthony Scaramucci. Legendary, hedge fund manager with Skybridge Capital, little brief stint even with the Trump campaign back in the day with the Trump admin, and a huge bull on blockchain. He's been very active in the space for a long time, and now he's again putting his money where his mouth is, if you will, by tokenizing two of his funds from Skybridge Capital, $300 million worth of them. Doing it through Tokeny, actually, which is now acquired by Apex, as we previously reported. So their new platform is called the Apex Group's Digital 3.0 platform. And they've selected Avalanche in this case. So, they probably have a Skybridge L1, or there's a Tokeny L1, as they would say, on Avalanche that's powering these tokenizations now. And it's pretty cool to see a sort of legend from Wall Street as well, right? Say, hey, we're using tokenization. It's about time. We saw Cathie Wood from ARK earlier this year say she might tokenize some of her funds, right? So this is a great trend, in my opinion, to see going off. Anthony Scaramucci is one of the best people to kind of help lead it off, given his reputation and credibility and what he's been doing in the space. So great partners involved, Kyle. I got to say, this is just this headline gets me real excited about the future of the space.
I totally agree. Shout out to Avalanche. They just continue to drive this institutional adoption with a lot of these fund products. And it does kind of feel like the dam is beginning to break for them, with KKR, with all these different funds now, with the Skybridge and Apollo. And, at some point they're going to start just using these portals because it's easier, because they've already started to bring on products and purchasing other products, and they're already going to have funds in the treasury that are on chain, and it's just going to be easier, more efficient, more cost effective, and these things are going to start moving. And I think that Avalanche is absolutely a blockchain and a platform to watch over the coming, it might take some time to drive this type of adoption, but I wouldn't be shocked if over the long term, you just, somebody that doesn't follow the space very, very, deeply is going to hear like some stat like, $5 trillion worth of originations happened on Avalanche last year. And it may happen kind of under the surface just because it's all institutional capital moving from one place to another, and just deployments continue to happen, and it's all powered by Avalanche.
Seeming like a very institutional heavy, enterprise heavy chain succeeding, right? Excelling in the RWA space. And that's why my focus is actually also on the issuer here, on Skybridge Capital, right? Because you see how folks like Apollo with their ACRED fund are really leveraging even DeFi, right? With their listing on Camino, for example, so that you can loop it there. I think that's really cool versus say, oh, I'm just going to use this as a mechanism to raise capital or to, manage my investors in a different way as a better way, from a cap table management perspective. I really hope we see some announcements down the road here where it's like, hey, these funds are going to be listed here or available on this ecosystem, or utilizing tokenization in this way, and maybe even a DeFi or a retail composable way. Who knows? May not be in the cards, but I'll certainly be looking out for that myself. Moving on, Kyle, on the real estate side of things, pretty big announcement from RE tokens, from retokens, that I think is big news. We saw a couple of weeks ago, Ondo bought Oasis Pro Markets, right? We saw in the early days of tokenization of security tokens, in the early days of RWAs, there was a litany of firms applying for broker-dealer licenses in order to be able to have the regulatory infrastructure, right, to be able to power a marketplace or a broker-dealer, an investment bank. And in this case, I feel like it's been a while since we've seen sort of a new one be awarded, right? I don't know about you. Maybe I'm misstepping here or we missed something, but it's nice to see that in 2025, also more of these licenses are now starting to be awarded, because RE tokens is the latest to now have both a secondary trading, license, as well as a full FINRA, marketplace license, a broker dealer license. So this is really exciting. Another broker dealer that's specifically focused on real estate, I think is awesome, because we've seen this asset class continue to get traction and attention, and we know there's a great use case here for it. But everybody kind of seems to agnostically support real estate in other ways. And now we're seeing another marketplace like this that's focused on real estate specifically here in the United States. That's a big deal. I think that we're going to see a lot here from Tyler Vincent and team from RE Tokens, in my opinion, Kyle, that now they've got this equipped. They've already have tokenization engine live. They've been tokenizing assets. As we know, I think they were the first to do a church, which I think is pretty cool. It's an ongoing raise. And they're working with Polymesh. They're using the Polymesh, one of the OG RWA chains. So, and I believe with some other top tier custodians. I don't want to speak here, but I gotta say, very exciting, Kyle, that RE Tokens is now gonna, what I imagine, really gear up the same way we've seen other ecosystems or tokenization platforms, scale up once they get this licensing.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting model to be a focused ATS secondary marketplace specifically for real estate. We have a lot of examples of successful real estate crowdfunding portals, whether it's Yield Street, whether it's any of those types of guys. And then, of course, the tokenized real estate game, which has kind of just always been an interesting use case. And I'm sure there's a lot of players in the space that are also not incredibly crypto native, but are still interested in getting involved in this opportunity. And I don't think that to date I can really think of, there was a real estate decentralized platform that we saw come out a few years ago, but a fully branded real estate alternative trading system for tokenized assets, I think is fascinating. And I really wish them the best of luck, because this is where I think ATSs will see some success, is by focusing on particular verticals, so that way they can really concentrate the liquidity, they can concentrate the investor base. They don't have to be just kind of sourcing different deals from all over the place and find new investors for each new deal that they work on. They can really target specific classes of investor, which is what these assets need for liquidity.
Yeah, no, that's a strong testament. So looks like we're both happy about this news as well. Good job, RE Tokens. And hopefully this is also a sign that more of these licenses are going to be awarded soon as well, which I do love more competitors entering this space just to try to bring more liquidity and more support into the space. So moving on, we have another heavyweight making a big tokenization move, talking about none other than S&P. S&P Global on their rating side has already rated some products. We've already seen on their index side, that's their Dow Jones indices, S&P DJI, that they did a deal with Centrifuge to basically tokenize the S&P 500. But now it looks like they're getting into the game themselves directly, with rumor confirming that they've been talking about potentially tokenizing the S&P 500, the Dow Jones Industrial Average, and talking to multiple big blockchains and DeFi protocols about it. So that's extremely exciting news because, of course, this is yet again traditional finance embracing this new operating system of tokenization. That's really what we're talking about. And the fact that earlier last year, BlackRock kind of paved the way for asset managers. Now, even with banks sort of starting to say, hey, we're starting to look at this. Now you've got one of the big ratings companies, one of the big index companies also saying, hey, we're getting into this in a big way. So I think that's awesome, Kyle. This is just, once again, validation and proof that Wall Street is 100% headed in this direction.
Absolutely right. I love your perspective here. I think that was well thought out and well communicated. So I just kind of have to retweet what you just said there, Herwig.
Yeah, well, then we can easily move on to that transition about Centrifuge there, because they're not done.
That's right.
Currently tokenizing the S&P 500 themselves as well with their DRWA platform, which is what they're pushing lately, right? The DeFi conversions into using RWAs. It's absolutely awesome. They announced their DERWA ecosystem and infrastructure. So I'm sure they're talking to lots of issuers right now. But as we know, they teamed up with Janus Henderson for their Anemoy product a little while back. And so it's no surprise here that the first product here, I believe, is now live on base using their Aerodrome DEX. So, lots of people can access this. That's Janus Henderson loan obligations that are rated, AAA rated. It's called the DEJ AAA fund product that's now live, DeFi compatible. Huge, in my opinion. This is what we've been talking about. It's now happening. So good on Centrifuge here. Good on Janus Henderson, and excited to see more of this. Kyle, your take?
Yeah, I think this is the type of product where, there's a lot of treasury vehicles, and I guess that term has really taken on a life of its own because there's so many different definitions. But there's a lot of crypto companies that have big balance sheets, which we traditionally would refer to as their crypto treasury or whatever. And those companies have been sold a lot of the BIDL fund and of these money market funds, basically saying, look, you're sitting on hundreds of millions or billions of dollars of crypto assets. Don't take the volatility risk of just keeping that in Bitcoin or ETH, and don't take don't just have it sitting in stables that's going to earn you nothing. Buy BIDL or buy one of these funds that's going to get you 3% or 4% per year, on $1 billion, still 40 million bucks, right? So that then you can use to run your operations of your business, do X, Y, or Z without touching the principal. And so my gut is that, especially because of how active Anemoy, for example, has been in the treasury fund space, and how active Centrifuge has been in supporting that these types of products are actually going to be targeting the same type of clientele, the same client base that's buying into the treasury products, the money market fund products. Janus Henderson is now going to say, look, we can get you an extra, 150 basis points on, our product. And so that's tens of millions of dollars a year for you, an additional capital, working capital, and profit that you wouldn't get in the BIDL fund. And so if you're, or whichever fund that they were using as a comparable. And so I think that from my perspective is probably the angle here of trying to slowly creep up the yield ladder, or the risk ladder of yield performing assets to try to generate more interest there. And as we've talked about, Herwig, it seems like this is how liquidity is going to get built in this industry, starting with low risk yield products, then starting to expand up that risk curve to generate more yield. And then obviously there becomes a point where you either decide to go into, pretty low rated corporate credit, or you then make the jump into, equities and things like that, maybe starting with the public markets, as we're seeing with so many of these public market assets that are getting tokenized, starting to build, wealth management portfolios and getting into, commodities exposure and getting into all of these things. So I think it all stems from we're watching liquidity being built in this industry in real time, and it's pretty exciting.
Very well put, Kyle. And absolutely right. I think this is exactly one of those signals that we're going to start seeing potentially. I guess we'll see, based on the activity here. But I think we are going to see folks say, hey, I want to start to look beyond treasuries. And products like this are going to fill that gap. So very cool stuff. We got one more big announcement, one more market movement, because this chain just kind of showed up on our radar. They are an agnostic chain, so they weren't really on the RWA radar yet. ZIGChain, that's active in over 150 countries, according to this article. They are now with Ripple, actually now an L2 on XRP, if I'm reading this right. Going to be focusing on RWAs as well, Kyle. So great news in partnership with Fanable. They're going to be getting into the tokenization game. So yet another sign, both here from the XRP perspective, that, as we've been saying, like Ripple is going to come back hard to try to go for the RWA throne. That's why it wasn't surprising to me about their attempt to buy Circle earlier this year before they IPO'd, because that would be one of those ways to compete in the stablecoin game, which we know they have one.
Sure.
But now they've been getting very heavy to get people to tokenize assets on their XRPL ledger. And I guess they've teamed up with ZIGChain here as an endorsement, I guess, to focus on this Fanable platform, Kyle.
Yeah, no, ZIGChain is they're building some cool things in the RWA space. We've talked with them on a variety of occasions on commodities tokenization, on collectibles tokenization, on music and IP rights and things like that. Previously, they were Eternity, and so if anybody's heard of Eternity, they've rebranded here into ZIGChain and relaunched their platform, working here with Ripple, as it looks like Ripple is an investor as well in the platform. And Fanable really focusing there on collectible products and things like that, which is certainly a huge market in the traditional space. I don't know it quite as well from a financial and economics perspective, but I love to support Miami-based companies, and ZIGChain is doing some really cool stuff, and they've certainly done a really good job of driving press, driving awareness, and building hype for the RWA space, which is something that I think the industry needs, because we do have a lot of TradFi people that don't always do the best in terms of marketing, branding, and making things sexy. So for that reason, I think that they're doing some good stuff there.
Yeah, and this isn't just like all brand new. Fanable is live and active, revenue generating. So this makes a lot of sense. They're now getting into the tokenization game here using the ZIGChain. And it's not exclusive to that, right? The article does here mention that bonds and other, real world asset applications are welcomed right onto the ZIGChain platform here. So, man, what a time to be alive in the RWA space. The crazy part is those are only just the biggest headlines, and you may argue that there were even bigger or other headlines that you thought were big. So we're going to get to the rest of them in just a moment, but first, some RWA Foundation updates. We started the RWA Foundation to bring together the leading RWA infrastructure, right, across the chains, the tokenization engines and marketplaces, the issuers themselves, the DeFi protocols, and even the ratings and oracles and other sort of critical infrastructure in between. And the reason for that is because we felt like we needed to create a community for crypto natives to educate them on RWAs, to help onboard them into this ecosystem, to focus on the intersection of DeFi and tokenization. We've got a lot of cool initiatives planned, but we've been working hard with our members, over 30 of them that we've been, announced last November. And I'm excited to say that last week we have added 14 new members to our organization. So on our mission to help connect the world's people to RWAs. I'm excited to say that we've brought on Solana Foundation, Orca, RWA World, Plume, AgriDex, Prestocks, Baxis, Global Settlement Network, Decentral, Onri, Bitbond, Ari Tokens, a credit token, and Polybit. Folks are all over the world and across all different spectrums of RWAs. And so we're very proud to now have over 40 members helping us on our mission here. If you've been following along, or if you're following us on Twitter at RWA Foundation _ or on our Telegram group, you'll have heard about the RWA pod. It's our first initiative that we're going to be releasing details to you next week. But quick alpha for you here is that you're actually going to be able to earn RWA project tokens from staking crypto. That's right. We're here to take crypto yield and turn it into RWA. So if you've got USDC, Ethereum, Arbitrum, or Sonic, and we'll be adding more chains later, you'll be able to stake and earn WALLY for the first time ever, as well as other RWA project tokens. So look out for the RWA pod details soon. Tap in, follow us. But with that, that's the latest update. Let's get back to more industry news. Kyle, man, it has been no slow summer when it comes to RWA news. Not a break, not a single week. And wow, it's another week like that here. So as per usual, if it's cool with you, I'm just going to load up into starting off with some RWA token announcements, right? New offerings, new updates, tokenization platforms, and then we'll get your take. All right. So with that, the first thing I want to announce is actually DBS is tokenizing structured notes on Ethereum, expanding to non-bank clients. Okay, so DBS typically being very institutional, now through ADDX or ADDX, DigiFT, and HydraX. They're going to be expanding investor access, non-bank clients, as they say. Very exciting to see typically institutionally structured products now making their way outwards through tokenization. Bitget is doing some innovation here, issuing RWA index perpetuals with tokenized stocks. I think letting you up to 10x leverage on US tokenized stocks. Pretty crazy stuff. And speaking of tokenized stocks, Swarm, who's been in the game for quite some time, they're actually expanding to multi-chain interoperability there to Hedera as well. So they're introducing tokenized stocks to the Hedera ecosystem. SBI is actually tokenizing Japanese equity. So rolling out in maybe next year or 2027, actually the stock markets in Japan will be on chain thanks to investment bank SBI. And Bowmore, the whiskey company, is now tokenizing whiskey bottles on Avalanche. Another win for Avalanche. So really cool to see more use cases like spirits and the like whiskeys also be used, because there's a big market for this asset class, even if it isn't as big as treasuries or commodities or stocks. So Kyle, what are your take on any of these updates? Anything stand out to you?
Well, look, I think we've seen the whiskey effort happen before. I think it's pretty cool. It's a fun initiative. It's definitely one of those more consumer style of products, but we also have seen Suntory and some other large whiskey companies getting involved in the Web3 space. And so pretty cool to see liquor companies getting involved in this space. It's one of the more profitable verticals in the public markets as well. And a lot of these are interesting. The Bitget perps thing is really caught my eye, and we went into the platform to try to check it out, and it does look like it's KYC'd. So I'm in the US. I'm not going to be able to really get involved here, but you can do 10x leverage on US stocks, which is bonkers. And this is just kind of a bigger trend, how everything is just becoming a speculative game, where now stock market is the same thing. We now have prediction markets coming out on all these things from Robinhood and Kalshi and Polymarket and everything. So I think that's a cool one, and certainly can be a really game-changing opportunity for somebody that takes a 10x long into an asset that ends up having an absolute ripper of a day and doing well for themselves. But I'm just not sure, that they have this index style of product. And this is kind of what we've discussed in the past, Herwig, where they are essentially using a basket of third-party custodians that hold the stock. And then the index supposedly will rebalance that portfolio of suppliers of the stock. So let's say it's Tesla. There may be 4 different providers of Tesla stock for their total float. And presumably they're having an internal style of control in order to determine if any of those 4 providers are delinquent or risk or whatever. They're also going to be trying to add more. But this does present, as we've talked about 1,000 times now, a level of risk in where these assets are being custodied and making sure that you actually own the underlying shares, right? If you're 10x long on Tesla, it rips, and then you go to redeem those profits, or vice versa. If you're 10x short and somebody hasn't been shorting the stock and now we can't locate the shares and blah, blah, blah. We have seen this before. We've seen this play out in the public markets. We've seen it be played out in the FTX markets of them doing tokenized stocks. We've seen this in every different way blowing up. And so I'm not here to say that Bitget is doing that at all. I'm just saying that those are risk factors that I don't think the average consumer or the average trader is considering when they are making these decisions to deploy their capital. And this is where you get a lot of regulators that are uncertain, unhappy about some of these things, not necessarily because they're trying to pop the bubble or ruin the fun, but if we don't know how to evaluate this risk, and if we don't know how to hold these underlying issuers accountable for what they're promising, then it gets a little bit hairy. And so not to pick on Bitget here because it's happening all across the board with all the mirrored shares and the private equities. Everybody wants to bring equities on chain. But if you don't actually own the underlying, you get GameStop style of frenzy like we saw from 2021. And I don't think that anybody actually wants that in the economy unless you're one of those guys that goes 10x long on GameStop right before it pops.
I think it's well said, right? It's like, at the end of the day, some bad apples can ruin the rest of it, the RWA space. And for anyone who's curious, I believe they're operating out of the Seychelles. So it's like, okay, I hope they're doing everything right. And we're not saying they're doing anything wrong per se, but I see what you're saying there. And it could lead to some slippery slopes, let's say, that if this isn't controlled or regulated potentially properly, it absolutely could cause damage to real.
Take profit. If you succeed, if you're doing well, like don't hesitate to take some chips off the table. So
anyway, lots of good stuff there. It just goes to show you the opportunities within the RWA markets, right? The actual tokenized assets themselves now, they're popping off. There's going to be opportunities left and right. There's going to be options everywhere. And that leads into some more of these announcements. Valereum Partners tapping ZIGChain. It's the first time I'm hearing of ZIGChain, okay, partnering with DigiShares for VLRM markets, okay? This is an MOU, so we're going to see this hopefully lead to some kind of a couple offerings here, tapping into this marketplace, but there's the inner workings of a partnership, right, that's going to continue to lay the foundation. And it looks like DigiShares continues to be a popular choice as sort of an engine powering a lot of these types of marketplaces. I know they just launched that REX, that RealEstate.Exchange as well. That's kind of like, I think, DeFi orientated. But now they're going to tap ZIGChain. It looks like DigiShares will obviously have to integrate ZIGChain for this to work. Zoth making a big announcement, teaming up with another blockchain, Haven One, in this case for RWAs, called the Fast Launchpad. Okay, I'm reading here. It's actually, they want to bring it down from 6 months to 2 weeks to tokenize. Kyle, that's crazy. We know it usually takes about 3 to 6 months to accelerate things. 2 weeks is possible. And it looks like they've assembled quite a bit of money here, $75 million, which does only come up to, I think, form of $25K here in grants or some number like that. But it does give issuers who are tokenizing an incentive to come to this launch pad, maybe get a grant and get to market fast. So that's an interesting strategy. Speaking of, I do want to mention an offering from RealEstate.Exchange next here, which is the Legacy in Miami. Very cool project. Well, depends on how you want to look at it. Kyle, you may have walked by it. I've seen it quite a bit from when I was actually in that neighborhood in Miami World Center, where they're building the Legacy, and it has been in standstill construction despite a lot of other towers around it moving up. So I'm excited to hopefully see this get some action again. And not only that, for it to be saved by crowdfunding. This is thanks to FraXion. FraXion is helping power this play with the Legacy using RealEstate.Exchange. And Stellar Development Foundation, it's worth mentioning, they've invested in Archax, which is a big deal. Archax is one of the leading UK and now expanding beyond platforms and licensed marketplaces for tokenization. They were working with Aberdeen and a bunch of other big name issuers. So very cool to see, and a big testament to Stellar. Makes sense. That's going to be one of the ways these blockchains get an edge in RWA platforms, by investing in them, not just giving them grants to support their chain. And two more here, Kyle, on the institutional side. The FIS is looking to add tokenized deposits and stable coins and exploring that. And then finally, DigiFT has announced a $25 million funding round led by SBI Holdings. And we know DigiFT tends to be very institutional RWA infrastructure focused. So another heavyweight to keep an eye on there, I think. DigiFT now with a fresh war chest to go after this market. Ooh, so many great pieces of news there, Kyle. Which one do you want to pick apart?
Well, it's interesting. I want to shout out Zoth and Haven One. I mean, 2 weeks to bring a tokenized asset issuer to market, I think is really great. And perhaps there's some compliance things you need to layer in there, or perhaps there's some other things that add some time, but at least reducing the friction in allowing an issuer to wrap their head around this, and again start soliciting investor intros and interest and feedback from their market, from their target consumer, is a really core component here. And this is how we can build some of that early interest and start to validate and justify the fees and costs associated with bringing a product to market, is at least getting feedback and reception from your communities, from your client base and things like that. So I really like what they're doing. These guys have been working hard on a lot of this stuff and have raised some money, and so that's very exciting. And the Archax guys just continue to thrive. I mean, we talked quite a bit about centrifuge earlier, and we've got Archax still fighting the good fight. They're doing some really cool stuff, and Stellar being involved here makes a lot of sense. They've made a big push into the RWA space and have been very supportive of the industry. So I think that's a natural partnership that's pretty exciting. And finally, man, 25 million for DigiFT is tremendous. I love supporting funding rounds, and in our industry, we need more great players that are getting the capital that they need to build their opportunities, to build their business, and to drive this industry forward. SBI is a huge name to have on the cap table.
Yeah, no, a huge name for sure. A lot of great comments there. I'm surprised you weren't more bullish on the Legacy tokenization. I, for one, want to see every building in Miami tokenized. The one behind me, the one next to it over there, the one I'm in right now, the one you're in right now, Kyle. I want to see them all be an option for me to buy. Scan a QR code walking by. This looks great. Let me check out the details on this. But anyway, that's the future we're headed towards. We got to finish up our show, don't we, Kyle, with one way that only way we can think of, right?
The best part of the week.
Yeah, by picking our company of the week. Let's do it.
Feels good to be here, Herwig. The serenity.
Well, we made it through the show, but I gotta say, it's getting harder and harder and harder. Feels like more and more pressure every single week on which company to choose for company of the week, man. I don't know about you.
It is. It's a competitive process. There's so many companies reach out to us every week asking, Kyle, Herwig, please pick us for company of the week. This is a game changer for our token price, for our investors, for our community. To be recognized on the illustrious security token show would be an honor and an award amongst others. Please take these billions of dollars in sponsorship opportunities. And you know what we say, Herwig? We say no. We are committed, dedicated to the game. Our morals and ethics are above all else. We care only for the most important, impactful companies driving the industry forward, doing cool things, and catching our eye in one way or another. And so for that reason, the illustrious serenity, the branding and awareness, the opportunity of winning the company of the week is still one of the most prideful moments in tokenization. Some say up there with Oscars, Grammys, Tonys, the Midas list, Forbes 30 under 30, even the economics Nobel Prize is the company of the week, Herwig. And so with that, I want you to kick it off with your choice for company of the week.
Well, for anyone who is still interested in listening after all that, I promise we do get some of those messages, but I haven't seen many. But I will say Kyle is right. We are completely opinionated. Our choice is not compromised in any way. It's whoever we decide, that we think is the best winner. So that's why I am so interested, Kyle, out of this week, so many cool initiatives, so many new token offerings, so many great companies launching or blockchains launching. Who could possibly be your winner, Kyle?
Well, my winner this week is a Miami-based company who is doing some awesome stuff. I wanted to shout out Fanable and the ZIGChain team for driving the RWA space forward. They just announced the partnership with XRP and the launch of that platform and their layer 2 with ZIGChain, which is their rebrand, which has been really successful. And then Fanable, which is the app that they're doing for all kinds of collectibles and different products, as well as they have all types of applications in their suite of services for RWAs, whether that's intellectual property, whether that's other types of RWAs and investment products. We've talked commodities with them quite a bit. And so I just think that they're doing cool stuff. They've been driving the industry forward. They're taking a slightly different approach with kind of the public awareness and marketing side. They've done partnerships with Mr. Beast and all kinds of other influencers throughout the course of their platform. And I think that just brings a different component to the industry, maybe bringing in some retail, some consumer products. I know they've done some really successful pre-sales and sold out of a lot of their different products. So they're doing well from a sales and liquidity perspective on some of their products that they're selling. So they've had success. They're doing it in a novel way, and they're so close to home. So for those reasons, Herwig, I think they're going to be my company of the week this week.
Phenomenal reasons, Kyle. Phenomenal reasons. Absolutely. Love the fact that, you got that local touch. Love even more that this isn't a concept company. This is an active company with a lot of success behind it already. Also want to point out that sort of through the ZIGChain relationship that they're kind of using an L2 on Ripple that could have some powerful strategic advantages that I'm sure they're taking into account. Given their relationship there, I think they count them as investors. So a lot of testaments here. And I love that use case. So that's an absolutely fantastic choice.
Yeah, something different, something fun. And how about you, Herwig? Who's your choice this week?
Well, a lot of the times people might call me boring because I do tend to I have to honor what I think does make the biggest impact in many cases, because I see our choices here every week as part of the chronological history here of the RWA space. Each week, the winner that we chose really was that week's impact in the space, So I think it's a big deal who we choose. And this week, I want to give it to Avalanche, not just because of what they've done this week, but also what they've been doing all this time to get here. I have to give full disclosure here, Kyle, as we know, Blizzard, their VC arm, is one of our investors in STM. But overall, this is, again, personally opinion, because I love the fact that they managed to get not one, but two awesome issuers to tokenize this week. And this is off the heels of a lot of other major news. We gave companies of the week, I gave a company of the week award to, I believe, Balcony DAO back when they tokenized the Bergen County titles in New Jersey on Avalanche. We had heard earlier that the California DMV was tokenizing car titles on Avalanche, right? And now you've got one of the most vocal names in both crypto and Wall Street combined, kind of, out of Anthony Scaramucci, right, with Skybridge Capital tokenizing a pretty large sum of funds to get started, and just the beginning, I'm sure. But then also Bowmore out of Scotland. Yeah, like that's pretty cool stuff. That's a 1779 founded year company. That's that's a very old company that they have now convinced to directly tokenize, onto the Avalanche chain. So I think that's another kind of testament to what Avalanche has been able to accomplish with their sort of enterprise L1, custom L1, sort of infrastructure blockchain. So, Kyle, for all those reasons, Avalanche is my company of the week. Blockchain.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to go to the liquor store and grab a bottle of Bowmore just to try it out, see how it tastes now that it's newly tokenized. It just has a different flavor profile to it that you just don't get from any of their competitors.
No, absolutely. That's an interesting one. We got to give a shout out to one of our new founding members of the RWA Foundation, Baxis, which you could take that Bowmore bottle and actually put it on Solana through them, tap into a marketplace. So I will say, I'm just like I was calling out on seeing what utility and usage is going to come out of Skybridge for their funds. It's also going to be interesting to see how Bowmore leverages the on-chain capabilities, right? What are they actually going to do with this now? Or is this similar to kind of like what we're seeing with some of these other moves on Avalanche? A little bit more, again, enterprisey, a little bit more record-keeping focused, a little bit more, marginal improved efficiencies versus, hey, we're going to go to DeFi and tokenize assets, right? There's a couple different ways you can approach this. So that's why we're here for you. That's why we have the show, to keep you up to date every week. So if you do enjoy the show, give us a like, share it, subscribe if you haven't already, and make sure you're following Kyle and I to keep up throughout the week, so you don't have to wait till the next Friday as we get close to episode 300. Kyle, absolutely love it. More than 6 years of work. Any closing thoughts about on global settlement or on the show this week from you?
Well, we're getting ready to kick off our Asia tour starting in September. So I will be in Bali for the Polkadot event, and then I'll be in Tokyo to meet with the Japan Security Token Association before we go to Seoul for KBW and Token 2049 in Singapore. So if anybody's in region or wants to meet up or hang out, hit me up, and let's do some business.
I love it. I love it. I love it. The annual tour to Asia has begun once again for
3 years in a row for me, which is just funny how that works.
Pretty crazy stuff, but we'll see. We'll get the show done for you as we always do right now. So with that, everybody, thanks for watching. Have an amazing weekend and happy tokenizing.